Guys, thanks for coming here this morning. So, like I think we talked about this before. So we're working on S relationship. We are trying to add how users can actually get into ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Portal, get those GIS data safely into InfoWorks and Civil 3D, so that they can actually use it fully without worrying about files and formats and where the data is stored and things like that. We've been adding a lot of capabilities on InfoWorks. We added a bunch on the 20.1 Civil 3D as well. There are a few functionalities we added recently. I just thought I'll run it by you guys to get an overall picture. Just to kick started, I just added, let me move things away from here. I just added a couple of layers in my InfoWorks model just to show you how I got it for any new folks on the meeting today. So this is 20.1 InfoWorks, and we have a button here called ArcGIS Autodesk Connector for ArcGIS. You click that, the software automatically takes you to the connector piece. If you have a login, in this case, I already logged in. That's why software knows where I am. It takes me there. If you did not log in, if you're doing it for the first time, you'll probably, let me sign out real quick. All right, you'll probably just see this as the first window. By default, it's arcgis.com. You can click connect and you can enter anything you want. Or if your company has any portal, you can click add new portal and specify your portal URL. Then you can log into your ArcGIS Online portal of your company. It's basically, your portal is pretty much the same as ArcGIS Online, except that Online is the public cloud maintained by Esri, but the portal is basically within your firewall. But functionalities wise, at least from user perspective, they're exactly the same. One is inside your organization, the other one is outside your organization. That's the thing. And also, if some of the users don't have any ArcGIS credentials or licenses, but you want to access some of the public data posted by the DOTs or the cities or counties, you can click access as guest. Let me just try that real quick. And the software will still move into the map view, but it'll show you only the public layers for that area of interest. Again, in this case, I'm opening from the existing InfoWorks model, so software knows my area of interest. It automatically shows everything. So you can always select something, bring it in, and work with it. So even if you don't have credentials, you can access the public data. If you have credentials, you can see your organization stuff. Let me show you that. I want to connect here. Here's my authentication. Do it quickly. And once you log in, now you go to the similar map view, but in this case, not just the public, but it also has additional tabs like my content, my groups, and the organization. This is basically a different way of sharing the layers within your organization. We made quite a few improvements on these two. For those folks who knows about the groups and stuff, like in the newer version, you actually have the groups available as a separate thing. Instead of in the previous versions, it had like a multiple, everything that comes as a layers. As a user, you don't know which one is a group and which one is not. In this case, it will be aligned by the group name. In this case, this particular group, there's no layer underneath it. That's why it's hidden or it's basically disabled. But if any groups are there, I can select it, I can do with it. So this helps organizing the data within your team, within your groups, obviously, and get what you want. And the content is pretty simple. I can actually get here. I can select. This is what I did. I selected this, and I can choose to how I want it to come. Let's say for roads, and click the preview icon. You can actually see the preview. In this version, we actually added the preview icon as an option. When we talk to the customers, sometimes you bring in big data, large data. You know exactly what the data is. You just want to click it and bring it in. You don't want to wait for preview to load and things like that. That's why we made that as an optional one. You can click it and you can see if you don't know. But if you know what's going to come in, you can just straightly bring it in. Very easy. And I can do multiple layers like this. I can select like a buildings and whatnot. And at any point of time, I can see these are the layers selected. I want it to come in. I can click add to my design project. It comes into in this case, InfoWorks model. Similar workflow on the Civil 3D also. I'll cover that in a second. I already brought it in, so I'm not going to click add to my design project. I'm going to close it. But when you click add to design project, you'll see things like this. I brought in some buildings. I brought in some linear features. I also brought in some of the vertical features, like a point features. as well. So it comes in as a rows, and you don't have to you don't have to assign any coordinate systems. These are all taken care of. When you see it, the one thing I can show you, when you go to configure window for this one, you actually see them as, go to the geolocation, you'll see as WGS84. That's because that's how things are stored in ArcGIS Online. Your data might be, this is actually in Alberta, Canada coordinate system. When I upload it to ArcGIS Online, it automatically quote unquote transforms to a WGS84 for easy data transfer. So when you bring in the data, it will show WGS84. You don't have to go back and change the coordinate system here. It is actually in the right place. So that software automatically does the reprojection for you and brings in, it's a Alberta 114 coordinate system. So the data is here already. There are a couple of things we added in the past release also. I noticed that some of the customers didn't know about it. I just thought I will highlight a couple of those. Like for example here, so I have how many rows? If I go to my model explorer, and this is my stuff, view and data table. I have about 6 of those records as a rows here. Let's say I want to add new row. Let's pretend that I want to have a row right here. This actually area, for some reason GIS doesn't have it. In the previous versions, it's not easy to add a new record into this. But the 20.0, from 20.0, we added that capability. Like for example, I can go to my road and let's just say I want to have the sidewalks with lamps just for a demo purpose. And before you start drawing, that's how usually you just start drawing, the road comes in. Before you do that, just right click and say, I don't want it on the regular default roads. I want it as a part of this layer that came from ArcGIS Online. I'm going to select that. And now if I go ahead and draw the road, let's just say I'll just do till here, for example. And now that's a road, like a default, the typical road that comes in InfraWorks, but the only difference is now it's already selected and it's actually part of the Edmonton model linear feature. Now when I go now and go to my data table, now I have 7 records. So basically I'm adding new features, aka new records, the layer that came from ArcGIS Online. So you can have one place, you can start working on it. If you want to, you can always save it back. I'll come to that in a second. You can do a lot of stuff. And the other cool pieces, let me cancel. The other cool pieces, let's just say you already have some routes, right? For example, I created this sidewalk, which is actually by default, it's actually in the road. It's like where you hand draw before you brought in the data, or you got that from the different source. It could be from a model builder, or it could be some other shapefile, or some other means you brought it in. You don't want multiple things hanging around. You want everything to be in one layer, in this case, the layer that came from ArcGIS Online. All you have to do is right click and say change feature class and put them into this particular feature. So now this becomes part of the ArcGIS Online feature as well. So now when I go back here, show you the data table, now I have 8 records. It includes the one I just changed the feature class. And you can change it back also anytime. So if I go here, if I want it to be part of the road, I can still do that. It'll go back. But the idea here is add more flexibility so that as a user, you can control where the data should be and which layer it should be, so you can take it back in. And all the editing is also possible, obviously. Like for example here, let's say it is overlapping with it. I don't want that to happen. Let's say I want to move it a little bit back here. And I'm just going to leave it as it is for now, just to show you how the data looks. So this is how the data is. Let's just pretend that I'm done with this project. If I go to my ArcGIS, this is the layer that comes in. Don't worry about this one. I just removed this line sometime back in ArcGIS Online. It just stays there. Apart from that, I have this couple of rows like this one. Let me select somewhere here. There you go. This one, I just moved this back a tad bit, and these are all the rows. I added 2 more rows on this side, just to give you a frame of reference to what I'm talking about. And when I want to, let's say I made some changes, I want to save it back. The concept is very simple. You go here, right click on the layer you want to save, and click Save Back. For any GIS folks out there, don't worry, not everyone can just dump the data back into GIS. any layer editing privileges assigned in the ArcGIS Online is honored completely by here. If this layer is marked as a non-editable, when they save back, it will give us a warning saying, I cannot save it back because of the privilege, lack of privilege, or things like that. So that part is still maintained. So we make sure that data is proper. You don't want a lot of people to say back and forth, and I don't want it to create a confusion, obviously. In this particular case, I enable the editing capability of this layer. So when I go back here and click Save Back, it'll actually go back and saving those records into ArcGIS Online. And this piece, of course, I know I'm showing you only 8 records here, so it went pretty fast. In the older version, I'm talking about 19.2 or 19.3, the people who used the save back functionality, it took a long time because we are trying to save everything, especially for once I worked on a citywide data for the buildings, it took a long time to make an update. But in the last 2 versions, we made that performance enhancement, so it saves back only what's needed. So your process will go much faster. You don't have to sit and do this in your computer. All right, so now I have saved back. I come back here and just refresh. I'll let it refresh real quick. Come on. There you go. So now these are the roads. This is the one I just pulled a tad bit back right there. And this is the sidewalk I added. This is the road I added. Everything gets saved back. I didn't show you the editability of the attributes, but some of the attributes you edit will also be transferred, so you don't have to worry any of those things. It pops up completely fine. So now you can bring the data from ArcGIS, literally with the click of a button. You can edit them, attributes, or the geometry. You can add and click a Save Back. It goes back into your ArcGIS Online clean. Okay. Any questions before I move on to the next one?
Ramesh, the only question was, Chuck was wondering if you could confirm if this is in the current rolling sandbox build?
Yes, it's actually, everything I'm showing you is in the current rolling sandbox build, yes.
Perfect, yes, big step forward, he said, so it's good news.
So Ramesh, just to be even more clear on that, so the target on this is update 1 of InfoWorks, which is targeted for later this month, correct?
I was about to say that, yes. So everything I'm showing here will be available in the upcoming InfoWorks release as well. Perfect. All right. So then this is some of the stuff we added. Actually, the ones I'm showing you, it's actually even in the current release version. It was available to you from the previous release. A lot of customers didn't know about adding the features and editing and save back and attributes. That's why I wanted to cover that. So even the current 20.0, InfoWorks 20.0, you can actually do everything I just showed you. On top of that, the 20.1 that's coming up, let me unselect it. We made some of the enhancements, the UI enhancements and things like that, but the main thing is ability to export or publish to ArcGIS directly. So in this case, in this particular InfoWorks model, I have only the layers that came from ArcGIS. But in a practical scenario, you obviously will have an existing model. You brought in a lot of different data sources. You added some of them, some features. Then you brought some of the GIS data as well. You worked on it. At the end, now I have this complete model. I want it to be part of the GIS, ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS portal. Either you want to share it between the other folks or the GIS counterparts want to take it and see how they can update their GIS library. In those cases, it was hard before how to take this out of it and take it to ArcGIS Online. We are making it easy. So one thing we can publish to ArcGIS. I'm going to click this, and it will first make sure you have the correct credentials because, like everything else, the logging in, S3 has in a way that when you access the data, you can just have a read privilege in your user account. When you want to write it back, you need to obviously have a read and write privileges. For a publish, you need to have a publish privilege. So it makes sure you have those privileges. So, and also, this UI also gives you an option where you want to publish. You want, let's say most of the customers, what they have is arcgis.com. Maybe you have a couple of portals in your organization. It gives you a choice where you actually want to publish so that you can move from there. In this case, obviously, I have only one of them. I want to publish there, say connect. In that window, if I don't have the access for my for publishing, it will tell you don't have the enough privilege to publish. Why don't you log in? We just want to make sure we take care of that in the beginning, so that you can take corrective action instead of showing at the end, which doesn't make sense, obviously. So now I have the privilege. I decided where I want to publish. Now I can choose what to publish. So here, let's just say I want to choose the entire model. I can choose specific layers I want to publish, or I can do all feature types. So these are the cool stuff. Anything you have, it will show you all of them listed here. You can choose exactly what you want to publish. You have a complete control over it. It also shows you what's the target coordinate system you want it to be assigned for that particular layer. So now, let's say I want to publish all the feature types and click publish. And you just want to make sure so the piece you saw just now so far is InfraWorks side, what you want to publish. And the piece you're going to see here is how you want it to be published in ArcGIS Online site. Like for example, the first screen will be, these are the stuff I'm publishing. And this will go as a polygon. If you want it to be published as a linear feature, like a polyline layer, you can choose if you want to. And same thing, vertical features will go as a point. There's nothing much you can do there. And the linear feature, the line features, is it a closed line? You want it to be treated as a polygon? You can choose if you want to. So you can map how you want it to be published. And also the layer name. These are the layer names, happens to be in InfraWorks. And this also has a little bit fancy names, but if you actually add regular city furniture or regular roads, you'll see the city furniture, roads, and buildings, and so on. You want to add some information, so you have an option to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to call it, let's say, export, for example. So I add a tab called export, not a tab, information, right there, add export, and export. So I can define how it wants to be termed when it's published, so that it's easy for me to go and search it. And there are some naming conventions for the layer. It'll honor all those things. It'll give you a nice warning, like this, for example. So I have an Edmonton as a service name. It will tell you this service already available as a name. We cannot do the duplicate names here. I can call it, Edmonton demo, for example. For some reason, I already have that too. Edmonton published. That's it. And you can provide some summary. So what are you publish? We are actually taking a persona here as a user, is the InfraWorks user. The user may or may not be aware of all the GIS integrity details of the ArcGIS Online or portal. And at the same time, we really don't want someone to publish this and sit and write an email or have a phone call for 15 minutes to say what you published. It doesn't make sense. You don't want to explain to everyone. So here you add it and add any summary information you want. And tag is basically a key terms, what you want to be searched for. I say Edmonton, for example. So any tags you want. So the recipient, whoever gets access to this, they can just search and they can get this layer. They don't have to, for lack of a better word, calling you or emailing you and making you do the stuff. They can search it. And same thing, if you want to access something, you can just search and get it as well. Makes it very handy. And in advanced settings, you can control whether someone can edit the data, or do you want to share it to everyone, or just your content or your group, anything you want to. I'm just going to say, let's just say I want to publish here. You can assign those simple but very effective, those features, so you can control what being published. I'm going to say next. And which folder, by default, it's my content. Once you get a little bit advanced on the ArcGIS Online side, you can actually create some other project folders, and you can specifically say that put this in the project folders. You can be more organized when the data comes, when data goes into ArcGIS Online. And hit publish. It goes ahead. It publishes the data, and it will provide you a feedback saying what's published. Usually, it depends on your accessibility to your portal and things like that, obviously. Any questions while it's doing it?
A couple quick questions, Ramesh. So 2 questions. Alfred's asking, how does the ArcGIS connector work with proposals? Like example being, if you have one alignment that is in 2 different proposals with different geometry.
So I think the export works on the proposal level. So I think when you could do that, the export works similar to other export options in InfraWorks. So whatever the current proposal, you can actually choose it and you can publish it. That's how it works right now.
Thank you. The last other question was Jen's asking if they will be able to save these export settings for situations where they're repetitively pushing the data in the same way.
Yes. So, well, it depends on what type of settings. Like, for example, the sharing capability. Well, to be honest, there are only a couple of settings: the summary, tags, and the editability and sharing. We can save it. I think we save it a little bit. But the question, we want user to check it before you actually publish it. Because just because you published last time and you let them edit and you shared with the team, doesn't mean that these data you want to do the same thing. Then you have to go back and change it. It can be a painful process. So only a few options are there. We will remember it, definitely, but we strongly suggest user to check it and change it. The mapping of the export different layers, that one, we don't store it at this point of time. That has a naming convention part, and also the layer names can change, but that's something we're actually having a to-do list so that we can remember the last one and make sure user can make the proper changes. And there's another catch on that too. So if you keep on publishing with the same names, then you can end up having many layers on the ArcGIS Online site with the same names too, even if you remember it. So it obviously depends on your workflow. We can remember, but I would strongly suggest to make sure you use your naming conventions to handle that. Okay. All right. So the publish succeeded, and it gives me a link. Do you want to view in ArcGIS? Sure, why not? It actually takes me to the ArcGIS Online and shows me this is the layer I just published, and I need to have my credentials, obviously. Excuse me. Okay, so those are my roles. That's the building. I just selected everything. Those are the 2 additional roles I added. Like I said, those are the one I just pulled back, that particular road. Everything gets published. And publish brings in all the attributes, by the way. The one thing I did not go too much today is like an extended schema. So obviously the roads and city furniture are the default schema the InfraWorks uses. As a user, you can actually add more attributes to what you want. That's the extended schema part. Like for example, even if I go back here real quick, if I click this road, by default roads will have till here. Since I got this from ArcGIS, it'll actually have this information called ArcGIS, where these are all the layers that came from my ArcGIS Online as an attribute in InfraWorks model. So the software basically extended the schema automatically for you and added this. That's why when you go to Model Explorer, it's not part of the rows. It will show you a separate one. Like for example, I just created brought in Edmonton Model 1 linear feature. So let's say John brings in a data called roads_John, for example. It's a custom road and it's there in the GIS. It may have a different set of attributes than this or the roads. So it'll actually extend it and it'll make sure you have access to those attributes as well. And the cool stuff is you can extend anything on your own here. Just to quickly show you, like for a city furniture, let's say right click. When I say add extended schema, I can actually add more attributes to any of these default InfraWorks properties, and I can create some attribute name and so on and so forth. And if you publish those layers, any data from those layers, they will be publishing all those attributes also. So anything you see here as a part of the InfraWorks model, especially the attributes and the extended schema, will be published as well. Okay, so that's the piece. And when I go back to ArcGIS, so yeah, so all those layers published. And when I go here, oh, not this one, wrong window. And you can actually see here _export. These are the ones I brought in. And when I go to home content, excuse me. And so you see this is the Edmonton published. This is the feature layer I brought in. And inside that, I will have those 3 layers. One is a building, one is a road, and one is the city furniture. Those 3 are automatically here. And once it's there, you can actually share and you can do whatever you want. Like if you remember, When I shared it with this particular team. It remembers that. If you change your mind, you can always go back here and change it. So anything you want to do on ArcGIS side, you can still do that. But software does that initial push on the basic functionalities or basic permissions you want to set, so that you don't have to go ahead and change it here. That's the whole idea, obviously. So that's the publish piece. The way we want it to be completely painless. This is the feature I want. Click it, click publish, and go, and it does it for you. As a byproduct, so we actually use, since the multiple layers comes in, since there are a lot of attributes can be involved in it, we use the S3's file geodatabase as a vehicle to carry all this information to ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS portal site. Some of the customers raise the interest on, can I just export the file database? Sometimes I need to take it to ArcGIS Pro or something, I want to use it. So to cater those needs, we created that byproduct as an export option as well. So that's right here, export file geodatabase. And when you click it, the workflow is exactly the same what you just saw before, except it doesn't publish. I can choose the entire model. I can select what are the feature types I want. When you export, oh, hold on. Here's the file you want to publish. When I say I want to export, sure, replace that. It'll actually, by export the file database also, you can choose a mapping option, obviously. You want it a polygon or not, you have an option to specify which layer names and things like that. Add a little bit more flexibility and press OK. It will take the data and it publish as a, sorry, not a publish, export as a file database. It's actually a folder/file where you can use it. So by this way, you can bring in the data, you can edit and save back anytime you want, whatever the data you brought in. But if you have any other data that did not come from ArcGIS or Esri, you want it to be as a part of the GIS, you can publish or you can export it as well. Any questions, guys?
One just came in. How do UDPs, user-defined properties, propagate from Civil 3D and InfoWorks to ArcGIS?
I'll come to the Civil 3D publish part. So the property sets in the Civil 3D as is part of the publish will be published also to the ArcGIS Online.
Yeah, it's a little different, Ramesh. It's the user-defined property. It's a different. There's a different mechanism in Civil 3D. We can come back to that one. We'll let you stay on track for where you are there.
Sure. Anything else I'm missing? Oh, the only thing we are working on right now is, I don't have the thing to show during the publish process. Let me just quickly go through that. Come on. Let me just say everything. Go. One second. This entire model, all the features, publish. And in this window, so we're enhancing, because sometimes there are a lot of attributes can be in InfoWorks model. You might not want to publish everything, or sometimes you specifically don't want to publish everything. Some attributes can be sensitive information. You don't want to publish those details. So we're actually adding one piece here. For each of these layers, you can click and it'll actually bring down all the attributes. It'll by default will be checked. So for any typical user, you can just press a button, it publishes. Whatever the workflow I showed you completely works. For those users who specifically want to choose what attributes to be published and what not, you can actually bring that thing down. You can select what you want and you publish. The other teeny tiny advantage where we are actually making use of it is the naming convention. Sometimes, not sometimes, there's a specific naming conventions in S3 side for the attribute names. That's slightly different than what the naming conventions we have in the InfoWorks side. So when you publish it, those attributes might not get published if it doesn't co-share with S3's naming convention. In this selection window, you can actually have an advantage to correct them to make sure you publish how you want it to be. Something similar like this, like for example, ArcGIS layer name, if I start with like a underscore or something, it won't let me because the naming convention wise, I'm not allowed to start any layer name from underscore by S3. So we show the warning. Similarly, there are some convention there, we can do that. that is something as a team we're working on as we speak. If we're hoping to push that out in the next release, not the one that's coming up now, the one after that. Okay, that's what I wanted to cover on the infra work side. The civil 3D side, so everything, the data we brought in, and the way you map it and where you take it out, everything is we are actually trying to release, not trying to, we are releasing in the civil 3D. I was actually looking for a good presentation that I found John's video amazingly explains. I'm just going to run this to show you, especially given the time. The idea here is you click a button, user experience wise is exactly the same. You can actually go here, you can choose what you want, and the mapping, it'll obviously show the civil 3D objects. You can choose it to be a gravity pipes, or the structures, or the feature lines, or focal points. You can choose all those things. And specifically for gravity pipes, we actually add a mapping option. When you click it, you can specify how those pipes should come in by a default value or the attribute names. You can save and reload the settings. All those things are possible on the gravity pipes. And once you do it, everything comes inside Civil 3D. And those extended, those attributes comes in as a property sets in this particular case. And you can also edit and save back geometry. From MO imagery, you can actually see that those manholes are not lining up. I can change it, and I can save back through Data Source Manager, whichever layer I want to. Click it. Now those things, when I refresh on ArcGIS Online side, it updates it so you can save back completely. So it's very useful from user perspective. And you can add any new things, like obviously you're not going to just work on the layers that come from ArcGIS. You're going to add more feature lines and pipes and so on. When you want to publish, click the publish. Again, the experience is exactly the same. You can actually choose what are the details you want to publish and press OK. It will walk you through the same functionality, so you don't have to relearn anything. Everything is same, and add the necessary tags. And that's it. You press next, choose this is the folder you want to choose, and it publishes for you as a layer. So the entire workflow is also available in the 20.1 Civil 3D update. It's already out there, I think. And please just check it out and give us some feedback.